This week on the Media Boss Podcast.
I worked in the service industry like basically my whole life since I was 15. I was a busser and then, I was a server and I was a prep cook. That didn't last long. Manager, bartender. I've been a bartender probably long.
Media Boss Podcast is brought to you by two of our new partners. One is Pantheon. I can't wait to tell you about them later. And brought to you by Convert and Flow. You're going to learn so much about them. But now it's time for the Media Boss Podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Media Boss Podcast. My name is Dr. Barrett Matthews, and I am happy to be here today. Happy to have you with me. And I'm happy to have my guest with me today. And you all probably know I'm going to say that I have a great guest and I have a great show. Well, I can't help it if my guest is great. I'm cursed with great guests. It's just something I have on this show. But I'm glad you're here because you're a great audience. So I want to tell you guys about the Media Boss Podcast, especially if you're brand new. Well, here's the thing. Everybody consumes their information through one form of media or another. I just want to make sure that if someone's consuming my information, that I'm where they're looking. And a lot of people don't do that. We only focus on one area. What I want to do is get you to focus on making sure that wherever people are looking for what you offer, that you are there. And when you can do that, I consider you to be a media boss. That's what the show is about. Now, what I want to have you do is to share this with everyone. Let everyone you know have the opportunity to listen to the Media Boss Podcast. Subscribe and share it with them and let them know what you're doing right now. And I always like to start off every episode with something I like to call the Media Minute. Now, the Media Minute is this where I take some time to just share with you a tip, some news, something about the media that I think you ought to know. I want to talk to those of you who are talking about social media today. One thing, especially if you're new with social media, I mean, some of you, I don't think anyone's brand new with social media, but some of you may be, especially when it comes to your business. And one thing I want to recommend to you is develop a social media presence, a footprint, if you will. Now, what does that mean? That means that it's going to take time. And I know some of you are looking for instant gratification when it comes to social media. Well, it doesn't work that way. You're going to have to build it. And when you build things, they take time to build, right? So that's what I want to tell you right now. Build a social media presence, build a footprint, if you will. And that way, you'll get more people interested in what you're doing. Now, I get a chance to introduce my guest right now. Now, I happen to be a person who likes food. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And my guest here likes food more than me. But he also likes to let people know about food in media. And he does that through television. He does that through film. He is letting people know about his passion through media. And I want to bring on to the Media Boss Podcast to talk about these things, none other than Reyshan Parker. Reyshan, welcome to the Media Boss Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, sir. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here with me. Now, I got to tell you, I have a nephew who is a chef in Salt Lake City. So he's done a couple of TV shows where he's done some cooking on there as well, but he doesn't get to travel like you do, man. So what got you into wanting to do that?
Oh boy. So I was always trying to just make something, right? So you're making stuff on YouTube, you're making stuff on Instagram, you do all that stuff. And I was, I obviously I went to film school. I wanted to make feature films. I made one so far, Odie based in the Odyssey by Homer. If you want to watch a car crash, it gets better every time you watch it. Anyway, Amazon and Tubi, Odie based on the Odyssey by Homer. But I was trying to figure out a way to give back to like the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was focusing on like making small business commercials, and we still do that. Or finding, I made a show called Media Matters. There's only like 2 episodes. So it was a pain in the butt where we find positive small businesses and basically do an expose on them and make them commercials and stuff and redo their entire website, fix all of their social media, right? Like all of that. And it was a monster. So we made it through one full episode, which is more like a documentary. It's really more like a documentary movie at this point because it's kind of stands alone. But that was too complicated. So I worked in the service industry like basically my whole life. Since I was 15, I was a busser, and then I was a
Wow.
server, and I was a prep cook. That didn't last long. Manager, bartender. I've been a bartender probably longer than anything.
Okay.
But just being in the service industry and knowing, the ins and the outs of it, I started taking servers out to do something fun and a thing that was called Beyond the Check Service Industry Edition, where I just take a server and we go to the beach, or like we go do something fun and just talk about the service industry. It was more like a video podcast, really, with doing stuff.
Yeah.
But that was just for YouTube. And then I realized that I needed to, I wanted to make like a show. So I needed chefs, right? I needed restaurants. I needed to go around and about and meet and I want to do the opposite of kitchen nightmares, right? So I wanted to find the ones that were actually doing it right and show them off and be like, look, this is how you're supposed to do it, And so my father had passed away, and I was in Ohio for his celebration of life party, and my sister and her husband have a restaurant called Purple Chopsticks, which if you go and watch the show, Beyond the Check, it's the first episode, it's the pilot episode. It was the pilot season, really. And so I shot that. I came home, I edited it, I showed it to some people, and they're like, oh, this is great, you should do more. So that first season, we just hopped from one restaurant to the other, like one recommendation to another recommendation. And so we kind of shot the show one episode a month, leading all the way up until March of 2020. Wow. And then we shot the last episode of the season literally on March 7th of 2020. And then the world shut down.
Yeah.
So got that edited, and then we went ahead and made season 2 there at the end of 2020. And again, the world was shut down. So I'm in Savannah, Georgia. So we did, Georgia again and South Carolina. And then, so season 2 is out now. You can watch that. It's free on Amazon Prime and Fox's Tubi TV.
Sweet.
So a bunch of awesome chef owners and running their restaurants. And basically I just hung out with them. I dragged my picky wife with me and our camera crew. They're not real active in season 2. Jordan sits and eats with me, but Nikki wasn't really involved. In season 3, we went to Texas.
Okay.
And it's not out yet, but it's going to be called Beyond the Check Chefs of Texas. And it should be out sometime in 2023.
That is fantastic.
But it's more of a actual documentary series. They're long. It jumps around more. Jordan's cooking with the chefs too. Nikki, our director of photography, she also cooks for the chefs. So we're all more characters, and it's just a much bigger, more entertaining Beyond the Check, I think.
How big of a crew do you use?
We're not very big. There's the whole crew for Texas was, I think, 7 people.
Okay, that's still a good number.
And that includes me, right? So I think it was 7. Yeah, I think it was just 7 of us.
No, because I asked that because one of the things that I do with people is I help shoot business documentaries for them. So yeah, that it can be a lot of work.
Oh yeah, I mean, post is the reason. Like, I had expected season 3 to be out by December of this year, and yeah, that's just not going to happen. I mean,
I understand, my friend. I understand.
They're bigger than I had anticipated, and yeah, so. And so I think we're gonna because it's taking longer, we're gonna do a film festival thing and actually release them as solid documentaries to like the Austin Film Festival.
That's a good idea.
In San Luis, because I couldn't submit to film festivals as a season 3, right? So because they pretty much only want like either the new season of something, right, or something that's coming out. So instead, I'm gonna submit them as full documentaries. And then also release it as a full documentary series. So it will just be under the umbrella of Beyond the Check Chefs of Texas, and each individual restaurant title.
I gotta ask you, man, what would you say was your best experience at a restaurant?
I mean, they're all different. I don't know that one's any are better or worse than the other.
Well, not necessarily the food, just an experience.
Oh man, I mean, I have such a good time with everybody. Like
Okay.
it's like
Okay.
I've never been somewhere where I was disappointed with anything or just. I mean, we've had it when we were in Texas. We did everything from Ethiopian to like real like Chinese food,
Uh-huh.
not like Chinese food,
Yeah, I
Americans,
know
but
what you
like
mean.
Chinese food, and of course barbecue, right?
Yeah.
I think that overall, I mean, the best part is just like meeting and learning about the stories of the people who are running the restaurants, right? Like
Right.
they're chef owners. This is their dream, right? Like they're not working for anyone else. They are the entrepreneurs. They're in charge of their lives. If this restaurant fails, it's on them, right? Like if customers are happy, it's on them. Everything really comes down to them and their ability to maintain their success, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And how they do that is, I think, the most educational part for anyone else who wants to like run a restaurant. I mean,
Yeah.
Kitchen Nightmares is a great what not to do, right?
Yeah.
And it does give you what to do as well. But like, I don't understand how people can open a restaurant without ever watching Kitchen Nightmares, right? Like, it should be required viewing if you're even thinking about opening and running a restaurant.
I've been told not to do it.
Oh no, it is not for the faint of heart. It is not an easy thing to do. You think building a social media presence is a pain in the ass? Open a restaurant and start hiring employees.
Yeah. I have a friend in Georgia. He's he had a restaurant in Marietta area. And we went to lunch one day and he said, you know how people always say you never open up a restaurant? I said, yeah. He says, they're right.
They are. And so beyond that, because I can't be on the road all the time, and I produce in the show myself, right? Mm-hmm. So I started the podcast, the Beyond the Check podcast, where I just talk to cookbook authors and other chef owners and help people. Smart. And so you can cover a lot more ground vis-a-vis Zoom or StreamYard than you can, traveling around and spending tens of thousands of dollars on that endeavor, right?
How do you find your restaurants?
TripAdvisor.
Duh.
TripAdvisor and Google. I mean, that's not how I did the first season. The first season was literally just recommendation. Like, mm-hmm. Oh my God, have you been to Lily's? You gotta go meet Chef Mir. Like, he's great. And while you're there, Chef Mir's like, oh my God, you gotta go out to Hilton Head and see Amanda from Pomodori. We were both on Bite Club, and she won Bite Club, and I was a judge. And I'm like, all right, great. So called her and like, Mir wants me to come see you. She's like, yeah, come on. Wow. But after that, like season 2 was literally just, I just got online and found the ones I wanted and would just message them and be like, hey, I make the show, go check out season 1 if you're interested. I'd love, come hang out with you guys.
So what would you say is the biggest difference between putting together Beyond the Check and putting together something like Odie?
Oh, well, I mean, the pre-production is a lot more when you're making a feature film, right? I mean, and first you have to, you need a script. So you need a script, you need an entire crew that is more than what you need for a documentary crew, and actors. You need actors. You got to get them memorized lines. You got to rehearse. Okay. Like documentary filmmaking, and as much as like some reality shows are scripted, we're not really scripted. We shoot the walk-in, we arriving, and times out of place, right? But overall, it's just showing up, getting it all in the can, right? Mm-hmm. And then just most of it takes place in post, right?
Right.
Like literally, the filming process takes maybe 6 hours, right? We're there for 6 hours, but then editing a show will take months. So
I get it. And then you're talking about music and all that, as well as the score and all that. Yeah, that can be a hassle. And you probably, and I could be wrong on this, but you probably have some of the restaurant owners that, hey, when's my show coming up?
They're all very curious.
They're all very curious, I'm sure.
No one's really bothered me yet, because I think they're all still expecting it to be out probably in December, and I need to message them and let them know that we're holding off for film festivals and that come on. I sent them some teasers.
Okay.
Like if I get the intros done, I'll be like, yeah, this is happening. Look how cool you're gonna be.
Now, do you cook
Be
yourself?
I'm a home cook. I'm a home chef.
You're a home cook? Okay, gotcha.
That's why I still enjoy cooking. I've never done it for money, and I don't plan on it.
Well, hey, trust me. I have. I told you I have a nephew who's a chef, and one of my best friends is a chef. I've heard their horror stories.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about being your own boss as a chef owner is that you can set your hours, right? So it's you think that would be harder, and it is if you're one of those people who just is a micromanager and determined that you can only do it yourself. Like you will run yourself in the ground 80 hours a week. But if you're smart about it, most chef-owned restaurants, they're closed on like Mondays or Tuesdays, right, or Sundays even, right? So they're not open 7 days a week because it's usually family-run restaurants, right? Like, or at least
right. Now, have you had people,
it's not a lot of employees.
Have you had restaurants contact you to request that you come to them?
I have, yeah. I haven't actually been to one that asked me. People get a little confused. There's a pizza guy in Texas who his dad messaged me and was like, "Hey, I really want to have my son's pizza place on the show." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's great. Pizza, homemade." And I've talked to him and he's like, "Well, actually it's a franchise." And so really all the recipes are like from the franchise. And like, so it is like his different pizza restaurant. And I appreciate that about you. And I'd love to have, that type of, owner on my podcast, of course. But for the show, it just didn't work out. But I did offer to have him on the podcast, and I haven't heard from him yet.
Heard from him. Okay. Hey, I guess he didn't want it that bad, huh? So
really cool kid though.
As far as you doing the podcast, were there any challenges that you came up with when you first started doing the podcast that you now you find real easy to handle?
I mean, guests at first, I guess, was that's a thing to overcome. Like, how do you get guests? What and getting like local guests isn't that difficult. But once you get on like the and I'm sure you're on them, like Podmatch and all that, and you start expanding your reach, then I don't even try to get guests anymore. Like, right. I just have emails like with people being like, "Hey," or a lot of cookbook agents. Like I get a lot of agents just trying to get there. And the podcast doesn't really make any money, but I do get a lot of cookbooks. I get paid in cookbooks.
Well, you're a home cook, so that works out well.
It does. And I make Instagram and TikTok stuff. So when I have time, I'll pull out one of the cookbooks and I'll, try to make a dish out of it to, just continue promoting them because, I appreciate the cookbook and I need content. So thanks for the cookbooks and giving me stuff I can make.
I love it. Hey guys, we're gonna continue here with Reyshan Parker. Stay right where you are. We'll be right back with more of the Media Boss Podcast. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Do you have a podcast? Would you like to have it heard by more and more people? Well, Pantheon is the way to go. Unlock the right mindset and tactics with our program. Create momentum with repurposed content. Get paid to build your business. And with Pantheon, we'll even show you how to have a team around you that gives you a community of encouragement. Check out Pantheon today.
You and me together, we could be anything.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Media Boss Podcast. I'm Dr. Barrett Matthews, and we are continuing our conversation here with Reyshan Parker. I'm having a ball learning about how he's putting together these TV shows, these films. And actually, I wanted to ask you, are you putting together any more feature films?
We talk. We have lots of talks with my buddy who there's a horror movie that we want to make. We haven't got the script outlined yet, but it's super easy. It's a dinner party on Halloween with a bunch of social media influencers, and it just goes wrong.
Gotcha.
It's more of a comedy horror because we're really just making fun of society.
I can imagine.
And the the influencer zeitgeist.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I saw something. It's a movie in the making, and you're in Georgia, so you probably heard about all the deaths that happened at Lake Lanier. Have you heard about that? Lake Lanier in probably up there, Gwinnett County, Georgia. But that lake. When I used to live in Atlanta, I swear every summer there'd be at least 3 or 4 deaths there. And they're like, if you Google Lake Lanier deaths, I said there needs to be a horror movie made about this place. And now someone is doing it.
Boat accidents or just drownings or
all of them, all of the above: water ski accidents, boating accidents, drownings, everything. I said someone needs to make a movie about this place.
They're finally doing it.
Say, and it fits. They say it's built on an old burial ground where they buried some people where they shouldn't have been done. Yeah, it's got all the storylines.
Well, all right. No, I'll have to check that out. We've been focused on all the actual, we have a lot of boat deaths in and around here. We just had
in Savannah,
family crash into each other. Not that long ago.
Wow.
And then of course the entire Murdoch cases. You know about Murdoch murders and all that.
I heard something about that. I heard something to that effect. I don't know the details on it.
Oh, there's a great podcast called The Murdoch Murders, and then Netflix, I think, took her podcast their podcast, and it's a documentary now too. But right across the border in South Carolina.
That's crazy. Real close to South Carolina.
Yeah, that's all in Bluffton. So all of that took place in Bluffton. I think he's in jail now. Murdoch Murders, crazy.
It's really crazy. Like with Lake Lanier, I swear, I told somebody, they said that in that lake, there have been over 200 deaths. And it's a man-made lake. So it hasn't been around
the record since we started keeping track, or within the last decade.
Well, they say, and I'm looking at it right now, between 1994 and October of, when was this, 2020, 200 people have died.
Jesus, that's a lot for a recreational site.
I would have shut it down personally.
That's worse than that 1980s theme park, like the water park. You know what I'm talking about? There's an 80s park where it was just like Death Park, right? Literally.
you got scripts all over the place. It's coming at you, man. So before I let you go, Reyshan, I want to ask you: is there anything that you're promoting? Anything that you got going on that we can support you with?
I mean, you can find everything about me at my Popl link, which is Popl popl.co/beyond the check, and that's everything's there. Or just Google Beyond the Check, and you'll find the podcast and the show. And we do have sometime soon a kids cooking show called Snips Tips coming out, which is like our version of Sesame Street for food. So it's puppets.
I love that.
And food.
That's cool.
So just wait for it. It's coming sometime. Hopefully sometime in 2023 as well.
I'm on it. Reyshan, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you.
All right, no problem.
You are a media boss, sir.
As are you.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Reyshan Parker. Make sure you're supporting him. And hey, I got something for you guys. What I want you to do is go to www.5waystoPayingClients.com. I want to help you guys get some clients that are going to pay you. 5 ways to paying clients. It is my complimentary training, my gift from me to you. Now, we're about to get out of here in the Media Boss podcast, but we get out of here differently. We're going to take a break before we do. Now, you're saying, well, why should I stick around? Because I got an opportunity for you to earn something that's going to help you when you travel, so you can go to some restaurants and eat. So just stay right there. We'll be right back. Podcast? Would you like to have it heard by more and more people? Well, Pantheon is the way to go. Unlock the right mindset and tactics with our program. Create momentum with repurposed content. Get paid to build your business. And with Pantheon, we'll even show you how to have a team around you that gives you a community of encouragement. Check out Pantheon today.
You and me together, we could be anything.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Media Boss podcast. Man, we had a great time with Reyshan Parker here, and I want to tell you guys, look, I told you we got something special when we get out of here, but first, I want to tell you guys this. I want you to support the show. How do you support the show? Go to Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Media Boss Podcast. You go ahead and show us your support. We got some gifts for you, some nice gifts for you as well. So also, I just gave you guys a complimentary training, 5 ways to payingclients.com. Make sure you take advantage of that. 5 ways to payingclients.com. And for those of you who are serious about becoming a media boss, I'm doing my Make Money from Media Challenge coming up real soon. So make sure you register as Make Money from Media Challenge. All you gotta do is go to makemoneyfrommediachallenge.com. It's a 5-day training, and it's gonna show you how to get your business centered around all these forms of media, whether it's print media, video, audio, social, all these things, and you can learn how to make money using media. Get registered as a VIP and you get some extra things coming your way. You know what I mean? Wink, wink, wink. Now, also, if you want a podcast, if you want your own podcast, text the word podcast to 929-244-4323. Text podcast to 929-244-4323. And we're going to show you not only how to start a podcast, but even how to have one done for you. How about that? And last but not least, everyone, we want to make sure you're subscribed to the Media Boss Podcast and make sure you are sharing the Media Boss Podcast. Now, I mentioned this earlier. For those of you who go to the Media Boss Podcast on iTunes or Spotify and you leave us a nice review and you screenshot that and go to our Facebook group, Media Boss Club, and you send us that screenshot to let us know you did that, we are going to send you a $100 hotel savings that you can use anywhere in the world. So you go travel a lot, you can save money up to $100 on hotel stays anywhere in the world just for leaving us a good review. How's that? You like that? Good. We like it too. So how do we get out of here on the Media Boss Podcast? Those of you who know, you know. So you ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Media Boss